The bridge of the TDF Retribution hummed with quiet activity as it moved through the dark space between stars. Captain Marcus Webb sat in his command chair, watching the star field drift past on the main screen. His ship was 3 months into a routine patrol mission along the outer rim, checking for pirates and smugglers in the empty sectors where few people dared to travel. Webb was a tall man with gray hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. He had spent 20 years in the Terran Defense Fleet, working his way up from a young ensign to commanding one of humanity's newest ships. The Retribution was built tough, like everything humans made. It had thick armor, powerful weapons, and could take a beating while still fighting back. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Emma Ross from her station at the tactical console. She was young but smart, with quick reflexes and a good eye for trouble. Her fingers danced over the controls as she tried to make sense of what her sensors were telling her. "What kind of strange?" Webb asked, leaning forward in his chair. After years in space, he had learned that strange usually meant dangerous. "It's a transmission, sir. Very weak, coming from the next system over. The computer is having trouble translating it, but it looks like a distress signal." Commander Jake Torres looked up from his engineering station. He was a big man with strong hands that could fix anything on the ship. "Could be a trap, Captain. Pirates sometimes use fake distress calls to lure ships into ambush." Webb nodded. Torres was right to be careful. Space was full of people who would kill you for your cargo or just for fun, but something about this signal felt different. "Put it on speakers, Ross. Let's hear what we're dealing with." The bridge filled with static and broken sounds. Through the noise, they could hear a voice speaking in a language none of them recognized. The ship's computer worked hard to translate the alien words, and slowly the meaning became clear. "Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help. Our world is under attack. They came from nowhere with big ships and powerful weapons. We have no way to fight them. Our people are dying. Please, if there is anyone out there who cares about innocent lives, help us." The bridge fell silent. Everyone could hear the fear and desperation in the alien voice. Whoever was speaking was terrified and running out of hope. "Computer, can you identify the species?" Webb asked. "Analysis complete. The transmission comes from the Kelvari, a peaceful species from the Kelvar system. They are known to be non-violent, herbivores with no military technology." Ensign Lisa Park, the ship's communications officer, turned from her console. She was small and quiet, but she had a gift for languages and could talk to almost anyone. "Captain, I'm getting more information. The Kelvari are being attacked by something called the Bloodclaw Dominion. From what I can understand, the Bloodclaw are trying to take over their planet." Webb felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had heard of the Bloodclaw before. They were a nasty bunch who liked to attack peaceful worlds and turn the people into slaves. They picked on species who couldn't fight back like bullies in a schoolyard. "How far away is the Kelvar system?" he asked. 6 hours at maximum speed, sir," Torres replied. "And how long until we can get back up?" Ross checked her tactical display. "The nearest fleet units are 3 days away, Captain. Even if we call for help right now, they won't get there in time." Webb stood up and walked to the front of the bridge, staring at the stars. He thought about the alien voice they had just heard, full of fear and pain. Somewhere out there, innocent people were dying while their attackers laughed and destroyed everything they had built. He thought about Earth, his homeworld. Humans had learned long ago that sometimes you had to fight to protect the things you cared about. Earth was a hard world that made hard people. Every human child learned that predators existed, and the only way to stop them was to hit back harder than they hit you. The captain turned back to his crew. He could see the same anger in their eyes that he felt burning in his chest. These Kelvari had done nothing wrong except be peaceful in a galaxy full of monsters. Now those monsters were killing them while the rest of the universe looked the other way. "Ensign Park, open a channel to Terran Command. Tell Admiral Morgan what we found here. Request immediate fleet deployment to the Kelvar system." "Yes, sir," Park said, her fingers flying over her controls. Webb looked at each of his officers. "I won't lie to you. We're one ship against an entire Bloodclaw fleet. The smart thing would be to wait for backup. But those people down there don't have time for us to be smart. They need help now. Torres cracked his knuckles and grinned. Captain, I didn't join the fleet to be smart. I joined to kick the teeth in of anyone who hurts innocent people. Ross nodded agreement. The Retribution can handle whatever the Bloodclaw throw at us, sir. We're built Earth tough. Park looked up from her console. Message sent to command, Captain. Admiral Morgan confirms she's mobilizing every available ship. She says to tell you that when humans hear a cry for help, we answer it. Webb smiled for the first time since hearing the distress call. That was humanity in a nutshell. They might be a young species in galactic terms, but they had learned some hard lessons on their violent homeworld. One of those lessons was that good people had to stand up to bad people, even when the odds looked impossible. All right then, the captain said, settling back into his command chair. Helm, set course for the Kelvar system. Maximum speed. Course. Laid in, sir. Take us to hyperspace. It's time to show the Bloodclaw what happens when they pick on peaceful people while humans are listening. The Retribution leaped into hyperspace, racing toward a battle that would change everything. Behind them, Admiral Morgan's fleet began gathering, ship after ship answering the call to protect innocent lives. The Bloodclaw had made a terrible mistake. They thought they were attacking helpless prey, but they were about to learn why Earth was known as a death world, and why its people never backed down from a fight. The Retribution dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kelvar system with a flash of blue light. Captain Webb immediately ordered the ship to go silent, shutting down all unnecessary systems to avoid detection. What he saw on the main screen made his jaw clench with anger. Kelvar Prime hung in space like a wounded jewel. The planet that should have been beautiful was covered with smoke and fire. Huge burn marks scarred the surface where orbital weapons had hit cities and forests. Pieces of destroyed ships floated everywhere, the remains of civilian vessels that had tried to escape. My God, whispered Lieutenant Ross, staring at her tactical display. They're bombing everything. Commander Torres shook his head in disgust. Looks like they've been at it for hours. Those aren't military targets down there. They're hitting schools, hospitals, homes. Around the planet, 41 Bloodclaw warships moved in formation like hungry sharks. Their ships were painted dark, red and black, covered with spikes and weapon ports. They looked like they were built for one purpose: to hurt people and break things. On the flagship, a massive vessel called the Bloodfang, Commander Reed Voss studied reports from his fleet. He was a tall, thin alien with sharp teeth and cruel, yellow eyes. His species, the Bloodclaw, had conquered 12 peaceful worlds in the last 5 years. They enjoyed making other species suffer. Sir, we've detected a single ship at the system edge, reported his tactical officer. It appears to be human. Voss laughed, showing his pointed teeth. One human ship, they must be lost, or maybe they think they can play hero. He had fought humans before in small battles. They were tough for their size, but they were just another soft species that could be beaten with enough force. Should we destroy it, Commander? Asked his weapons officer. Not yet. Let them watch us finish off these crystal heads. Then we'll deal with them if they don't run away like cowards. Back on the Retribution, Captain Webb was getting a full picture of what they faced. The Bloodclaw fleet was huge, 12 heavy, cruisers that could punch holes in a moon, 24 destroyers fast enough to catch anything that tried to run, and the massive dreadnought that served as their command ship. 41 ships against one, Torres muttered. I've seen worse. Odds. When? Asked Ross. Never, but I've got a good imagination. Despite the joke, everyone on the bridge was thinking the same thing. This was going to be the hardest fight of their lives. Maybe the last fight of their lives. Webb opened a communication channel to the planet below. After a few minutes, a weak signal came through. The voice belonged to an old Kelvari named Elder Nix, one of the survivors hiding in underground caves. This is Captain Webb of the Terran Defense Fleet, he said in a calm voice. We received your distress call. Help is coming. There was a long pause. Then Elder Nix spoke, and Webb could hear tears in her voice. You came? Someone actually came to help us? Yes, ma'am. My ship is here now, and more are on the way. Can you tell me how many of your people are still alive? Maybe 50,000 in the deep caves, but our shields are failing. The surface cities are gone. Our children are so scared. The old alien's voice broke. We never hurt anyone. We don't even know how to make weapons. Why are they doing this to us? Webb felt his hands tighten into fists. He had heard that question before, from other innocent people who couldn't understand why evil existed in the universe, because they think they can get away with it. But they're wrong. On the planet's surface, the surviving Kelvari huddled in crystal caves deep underground. They were tall, thin beings that looked like they were made of living glass. Their bodies glowed with soft blue light when they were happy, but now they were dim with fear and sadness. Young Vel worked with other Kelvari to keep their shield generators running. The machines were old and breaking down under the constant attack from above. Every few minutes the whole cave shook as another bomb hit the surface. Elder Nix, Vel called out. The south generator is failing. We might have an hour before the shields collapse completely. The old Kelvari nodded sadly. She had lived for 300 years and had never seen violence like this. Her people were gardeners and artists, builders and teachers. They grew beautiful crystal cities and made music that could make stars weep. Now it was all being destroyed by creatures who found joy in causing pain. Elder, there's something else, Vel said, his voice filled with surprise. Someone answered our call for help. There's a human ship up there. Elder Nix felt a tiny spark of hope. She had heard stories about humans, strange beings from a world so dangerous that it created warriors instead of gardeners. One ship? Yes, but they say more are coming. Back on the Retribution, Webb gathered his senior officers in the briefing room. The walls showed tactical displays of the enemy fleet positions. The numbers looked impossible, but Webb had learned long ago that impossible just meant you had to be smarter and tougher than the other guy. All right, people, here's what we know. The Bloodclaw have 41 ships, we have 1. They've been bombing civilians for 6 hours and they think no one cares enough to stop them. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Ross pulled up detailed scans of the enemy ships. Their formation is standard pack hunting pattern. They're not expecting a real fight, just cleanup work. Torres nodded. Their ships are built for intimidation, not for fighting someone who fights back. Lots of weapons, but their armor has weak spots. Webb looked at each of his officers. These were good people, the kind who joined the fleet not for money or glory, but because they believed someone had to stand guard against the monsters in the dark. The way I see it, Webb said, we have 2 jobs. First, keep those civilians alive until our backup arrives. Second, make sure the Bloodclaw remember this day for the rest of their very short lives. Ensign Park looked up from her communications console. Captain, I'm getting a message from Admiral Morgan. The fleet is 30 minutes out. Every available ship in Terran space is coming. Webb smiled. That was humanity for you. When innocent people called for help, humans didn't just send one ship or make excuses about why it wasn't their problem. They sent everyone. 30 minutes, he said. We just need to hold for 30 minutes. Think we can manage that? Torres cracked his knuckles. Sir, we're from Earth. 30 minutes is just getting warmed up. The Retribution continued its silent watch as the Bloodclaw fleet finished positioning itself for the final assault on Kelvar Prime. Commander Voss was confident that victory was his. He had destroyed many peaceful worlds and enslaved their populations. This would be just another easy conquest. He had no idea that he was about to face the fury of an entire species that had evolved on a world where only the strong survived, and where the strong protected those who couldn't protect themselves. The calm before the storm was almost over. The first sign that something was wrong came from the Bloodclaw communications officer on the flagship Bloodfang. His clawed hands shook as he stared at his sensor screen, unable to believe what he was seeing. Commander Voss, sir, he called, out, his voice cracking with fear. I'm detecting hyperspace signatures at the system edge, multiple signatures. Voss looked up from his tactical display where he had been planning the final attack on the Kelvari underground shelters. How many? 20. No, 40. Sir, they keep coming. I count over 100 now. The bridge of the Bloodfang, fell silent. Every Bloodclaw warrior turned to stare at the main screen as dozens of blue flashes lit up space at the edge of the system. Ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming white and blue with the colors of the Terran Defense Fleet. Impossible, Voss whispered. No species had ever sent such a massive fleet to help strangers. In all his years of conquest, the Bloodclaw had attacked dozens of peaceful worlds while their neighbors looked the other way. Why were these humans different? Admiral Kate Morgan stood on the bridge of her flagship, the TDF Vengeance, watching as her fleet assembled around her. She was a short woman with silver hair and steel-gray eyes that had seen too many battles. Behind her, more ships continued to arrive. Heavy cruisers, destroyers, frigates, and support vessels from every corner of human space. Fleet status report, she ordered. Her tactical officer, Commander Bill Hayes, checked his displays. 347 ships and counting, Admiral. We have the entire Second Fleet, most of the Fourth, and ships from the Colonial Defense Force. More are still arriving. Morgan nodded. When the distress call had gone out through human space, every captain who could get their ship moving had answered. They came from Earth, from Mars, from the mining colonies and frontier worlds. They came because that's what humans did when innocent people were in trouble. On the Retribution, Captain Webb watched the massive fleet form up around his small ship. He had never seen so many human vessels in one place. The space around Kelvar Prime lit up with engine trails and running lights as hundreds of warships took their positions. Holy hell, Torres breathed. They actually came, all of them. Lieutenant Ross was checking her tactical display, counting ships. Captain, I'm reading 47 dreadnoughts, 92 heavy cruisers, and over 200 smaller vessels. This is the largest human fleet in history. Webb opened a communication channel to Admiral Morgan. Admiral, Captain Webb reporting. Thank you for coming. Morgan's voice came back calm and steady. Captain, you did the right thing. No one attacks innocents while humans are watching. Status report. 41 Bloodclaw ships in standard attack. Formation. They've been bombing civilian positions for the last 6 hours. Estimated 50,000 Kelvari survivors in underground shelters. Understood. Stand by, Captain. We're going to have words with these Bloodclaw. On the Bloodfang, Commander Voss stared at the tactical display showing the human fleet. 347 ships against his 41. The numbers were impossible. No species cared this much about strangers. No one risked their entire fleet for people they had never met. Sir, his tactical officer said, they're hailing us. Admiral Morgan's image appeared on the main screen of the Bloodfang. She looked small and unremarkable, but her eyes held the cold fire of a predator protecting its young. I am Admiral Morgan of the Terran Defense Fleet, she said, her voice carrying across the void like judgment itself. You are attacking a peaceful species that has done you no harm. You have one chance, to withdraw from the system immediately and never return. This is your only warning. Voss felt his pride and military training war with the fear in his gut. The Bloodclaw Dominion had never backed down from a fight. They were the hunters, the conquerors. They didn't run from prey species no matter how many ships they brought. Human Admiral, he snarled, showing his sharp teeth. The Bloodclaw do not retreat. We have conquered 12 worlds and enslaved millions. You think your numbers frighten us? We will destroy your fleet and then finish what we started here. Morgan's expression didn't change, but somehow her eyes grew colder. Commander, you just made the biggest mistake of your very short life. You had your chance. She closed the communication channel and turned to her tactical officer. Commander Hayes, signal all ships. Weapons free. Show them what happens when predators hunt while humans are listening. Down on Kelvar Prime, Elder Nix and the other survivors watched their sensor displays in amazement. Young Vel could hardly believe what he was seeing. Elder, look at this, he said, his voice filled with wonder. There are hundreds of ships up. There? Hundreds. They all came to help us. Elder Nix felt tears of gratitude running down her crystal face. In all her long life, she had never imagined that strangers from across the galaxy would risk everything to save her people. The humans were a mystery to her. a species that seemed to carry both great violence and great compassion in their hearts. They heard our call, she whispered. In all this dark universe, someone heard us and came. The space around Kelvar Prime filled with the low hum of charging weapons as both fleets prepared for battle. The Bloodclaw ships spread out in their traditional attack formation, designed to intimidate and overwhelm weaker opponents. They had used this same tactic to conquer dozens of worlds. The human fleet moved differently. Their ships flowed like water, taking positions that seemed random but were actually the result of centuries of tactical evolution. They spread out in small groups, each one supporting the others like a pack of wolves surrounding their prey. Captain Webb, still aboard the Retribution, watched the two fleets face each other across the void. All hands, battle stations. This is it, people. Let's show these bullies what Earth courage looks like. On the flagship Vengeance, Admiral Morgan looked out at the Bloodclaw fleet. These creatures thought they could attack innocent people without consequences. They picked on peaceful species because they believed no one would stand up to them. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Bloodclaw had made their choice. They had chosen to be predators in a universe that already had too many monsters. Now they would face the one species that had evolved specifically to deal with monsters. Humans from Earth, the death world that created warriors out of necessity and taught them that protecting innocence was worth any price. All ships, Morgan announced to her fleet. Remember why we're here. Those people down there called for help and we answered. The Bloodclaw think they can hurt innocent folks while we're watching. Time to teach them otherwise. The silence before battle stretched for long seconds. 347. Human ships faced 41 Bloodclaw vessels across the burning space around Kelvar Prime. The Kelvari survivors watched from their caves. The universe held its breath. Then Admiral Morgan spoke the words that would echo through galactic history. All vessels engage. Let's send these monsters to hell. The Battle of Kelvar Prime was about to begin, and the Bloodclaw were about to discover why you never attack innocents when humans are listening. The first shots of the Battle of Kelvar Prime came from Admiral Morgan's flagship, the TDF Vengeance. Her main plasma cannons lit up space with blue fire, striking a Bloodclaw destroyer that exploded in a brilliant flash. That single shot was the signal for 347 human ships to unleash hell. The space around Kelvar Prime became a storm of light and fire. Human weapons, built with technology forged in Earth's violent crucible, tore through Bloodclaw shields like paper. Plasma beams and kinetic rounds struck with devastating accuracy, as the Terran fleet showed why their species had survived on one of the galaxy's most dangerous worlds. Commander Voss watched in horror as his fleet began to die around him. 3. Bloodclaw destroyers vanished in the first 30 seconds, their hulls cracked open like eggs by human weapons. His tactical officer was screaming numbers that made no sense. Sir, we've lost the Dark Talon, Bloodstrike, and Bone Crusher. The humans are targeting our weak points with impossible precision. Voss couldn't understand what he was seeing. Every species the Bloodclaw had fought before tried to match them ship for ship, weapon for weapon. But the humans weren't fighting like civilized beings. They were fighting like pack hunters who understood that survival meant working together or dying alone. Captain Harrison Blake commanded the heavy cruiser TDF Thunder, leading a group of 12 ships in a coordinated strike against the Bloodclaw left flank. His ships moved like dancers, each one covering the others while they focused their fire on single targets. It was a tactic learned from studying wolves on Earth. Surround, isolate, destroy. Target the heavy cruiser Blood Moon, Blake ordered. All ships concentrate fire. 12 human ships fired as one. The Bloodclaw vessel's shields collapsed under the combined assault, and its hull split apart in a chain of explosions. The crew never had time to call for help. On the other side of the battle, Captain Nina Cruz led her destroyer squadron in a high-speed attack run. Her ships darted between the larger vessels like angry hornets, striking fast and hard before dancing, away from return fire. The Bloodclaw had never seen such coordinated speed and aggression. "This is Cruz to all ships," she called over the comm. "Remember, we're not here to play fair. We're here to make these monsters pay for what they did to innocent people." Her squadron tore through a group of Bloodclaw frigates, leaving twisted metal and escape pods in their wake. The human ships worked together with a precision that spoke to millions of years of pack hunting evolution. They didn't just fight as individual ships, they fought as a single deadly organism. Commander Voss tried to rally his remaining forces, but the battle was turning into a massacre. His ships were designed to intimidate peaceful species, not to fight apex predators who had learned warfare on a world where everything wanted to kill them. All ships, fall back to defensive formation, he ordered. Concentrate fire on their flagship. 20 Bloodclaw vessels turned their weapons on Admiral Morgan's ship, hoping to cut off the head of the human fleet. Their combined firepower would have destroyed any other vessel in known space, but the Vengeance was built to Earth standards, with armor that could take a beating and shields that refused to fall. The massive dreadnought shrugged off the Bloodclaw attack like rain on a mountain. Then it returned fire with weapons that made the void itself scream. The lead Bloodclaw heavy cruiser simply ceased to exist, vaporized by concentrated plasma fire. "Is that the best you've got?" Admiral Morgan asked calmly over the comm. Earth children hit harder than that. Down on Kelvar Prime, the surviving Kelvari watched the battle through their sensor arrays. Elder Nyx could hardly believe what she was seeing. The humans weren't just winning, they were dominating the fight with a skill and fury that took her breath away. "Look at them move," young Vel whispered in amazement. "They fight like they were born for this." "They were," Elder Nyx replied softly. "Their world made them into warriors so they could protect people like us." The battle raged for 20 minutes, but it felt like hours to the Bloodclaw survivors. Human ships seemed to be everywhere at once, striking with coordinated precision that turned their numerical advantage into an unstoppable force. The Bloodclaw formation crumbled as ship after ship exploded or surrendered. Captain David Kim, commanding the cruiser TDF Retribution's Honor, led the final assault on the Bloodclaw center. His ship had been named for Captain Webb's vessel, honoring the courage of the first human to answer the Kelvari distress call. "This is for every innocent life you took," Kim said, as his weapons locked onto the Bloodclaw command ship. "This is for every peaceful world you destroyed." The Bloodfang, Commander Voss's flagship, was the last major Bloodclaw vessel still fighting, surrounded by human ships, her hull scarred by dozens of hits. She was a dying predator brought to bay by a superior pack. Voss looked around his ruined bridge. Half his crew was dead or wounded. His weapons were failing. His shields were gone. In 20 minutes, the humans had destroyed his entire fleet with losses so small they barely registered. "How?" he whispered. "How did soft species like you become such killers?" Admiral Morgan's voice came over the comm channel, cold as space itself. "Commander Voss, you made a mistake common to all bullies. You thought being peaceful meant being weak. You thought no one would stand up to you. The human fleet surrounded the dying flagship like sharks around wounded prey. But they didn't deliver the killing blow. Not yet. You see, Commander," Morgan continued, "humans learned long ago that the universe is full of monsters like you, so we became something worse than monsters. We became monster hunters, and we protect the innocent because that's what separates us from you." Voss felt his ship shudder as human tractors locked onto his hull. Around him, the few surviving Bloodclaw vessels were surrendering or being destroyed. His great fleet, the terror of 12 worlds, had been swept aside like leaves in a hurricane. "You have 30 seconds to surrender unconditionally," Morgan announced. "Surrender, and you'll be taken prisoner. Refuse, and you'll join the rest of your fleet in hell. Choose wisely." The communications officer looked at Voss with fear in his yellow eyes. "Sir, what are your orders?" Voss stared at the tactical display showing the destruction of everything he had built. In 20 minutes, these humans had taught him and his species a lesson they would never forget. The strong didn't always win. Sometimes the righteous were stronger. "Signal surrender," he said quietly. Tell them the Bloodclaw yield." The Battle of Kelvar Prime was over. The human fleet had destroyed 39 enemy ships and captured 2 more, including the flagship. Not a single human vessel had been lost. It wasn't just a victory, it was a message to every predator species in the galaxy. As medical ships moved toward the planet to help the Kelvari survivors, Admiral Morgan looked out at the debris field that had once been a Bloodclaw fleet. The universe had learned something important today. When innocent people called for help, Humans didn't just answer. They brought judgment with overwhelming force. The age of unopposed predators was over. The Deathworlders from Earth were now watching, and they would not tolerate genocide while they drew breath. The galaxy would never be the same. 3 days after the Battle of Kelvar Prime, the space around the planet looked completely different. Where once Bloodclaw warships had spread death and terror, now human medical ships moved like gentle giants, bringing hope and healing to a wounded world. Captain Marcus Webb stood in the main square of New Crystal City, the temporary settlement the humans had built for the Kelvari survivors. Around him, human engineers worked alongside Kelvari builders, using both species' technology to create something better than either could make alone. The sound of construction mixed with the gentle music the Kelvari made when they were happy. Elder Nyx approached Webb, her crystal body glowing with soft blue light for the first time since the attack began. Behind her walked young Vel, who had become the liaison between the humans and his people. The old Kelvari moved slowly, still recovering from the trauma of watching her world burn. "Captain Webb," she said, her voice filled with gratitude that made the translator struggle to capture all the emotion. "I wanted to thank you again, not just for saving us, but for showing us that there is still goodness in the universe." Webb smiled and shook his head. "Elder Nyx, we just did what anyone should do when they hear people calling for help. I'm sorry we couldn't get here sooner." "Sooner?" Vel laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Captain, you came from across the galaxy in 6 hours. Your entire species dropped everything to help people you had never met. We will remember this for 1,000 generations." The captain looked around at the busy construction site. Human. Medics were teaching Kelvari healers new techniques while learning about crystal therapy in return. Children from both species played together in the ruins of the old city, their laughter proving that life would continue despite the darkness they had faced. News of the battle had spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On 100 different worlds, peaceful species that had lived in fear of predators like the Bloodclaw suddenly had hope. The galaxy's bullies had learned that there was now a species willing and able to stand up to them. Admiral Morgan stood in her office, aboard the Vengeance, reading reports from across human space. Her desk was covered with messages from alien governments, some asking for protection, others offering trade agreements, and a few threatening retaliation for what humanity had done to the Bloodclaw. Commander Hayes knocked on her door and entered with a tablet full of updates. "Admiral, we've got responses from 47 different species about Kelvar Prime. Most of them are positive, but the Razor Syndicate and the Death Cult Empire are making angry noises about human interference." Morgan looked up from her reports, with tired eyes. "Let them make noise, Commander. The galaxy needed to learn that genocide has consequences. If other predator species want to test us, they're welcome to try." She walked to the window and looked out at Kelvar Prime, where the lights of the new city were beginning to shine in the darkness. "Any word from the Kelvari Council about our proposal?" "Yes, ma'am. They've formally requested to join the Terran Federation. They're offering full access to their crystal technology and their knowledge of deep space navigation. In exchange, they want our protection and the chance to help us protect other peaceful species." Morgan nodded. It was a good trade. The Kelvari were brilliant scientists and engineers despite their peaceful nature. Their crystal technology could make human ships faster and stronger, but more importantly, they understood what it meant to be helpless against bullies, and they wanted to make sure it never happened to anyone else. Down on the planet, Captain Webb was walking through the crystal caves where the Kelvari had hidden during the attack. The walls still showed scorch marks from Bloodclaw weapons, but the Kelvari had begun growing new crystals to cover the scars. It would take time, but the wounds would heal. Elder Nyx had asked him to see something special. Deep in the caves, the Kelvari had begun work on a memorial for their dead. It was a crystal wall that showed the names and faces of everyone they had lost, but it also showed something else. Images of the human ships arriving to help, scenes from the battle, and portraits of the human crews who had answered their call. "We call it the Wall of Heroes," Elder Nyx explained. "It honors both our dead and your living." Future generations will know that when darkness came to our world, strangers from Earth brought light. Webb studied the crystal images of his ship, the Retribution, and the faces of his crew. It was beautiful and sad at the same time. Elder Nix, we just did our job. Any decent person would have done the same. That is where you are wrong, Captain, she replied gently. Many species heard our distress call. Only humans answered. That tells us everything we need to know about who you are as a people. 3 months later, the first joint human Kelvari patrol ships began operating in the Outer Rim sectors. The vessels combined human weapons and armor with Kelvari crystal technology, creating ships that were both powerful and beautiful. More importantly, they carried crews from both species, each learning from the other. The Terran Federation established a permanent base on Kelvar Prime, making it clear that the planet was under human protection. The message spread quickly through the galaxy. Peaceful species now had guardians, and those guardians were the dangerous humans from the death world called Earth. Commander Voss, the former Bloodclaw leader, sat in his prison cell on a human penal colony. Through his window he could see human children playing with alien refugees, species that his people had once hunted now living safely under human protection. The sight filled him with something he had never felt before: shame. Human guard named Officer Tom visited him regularly, not to torment him but to try to understand how someone could become so cruel. Through their conversations, Voss began to realize what he and his people had truly been. Not strong hunters but weak predators who picked on those who couldn't fight back. Why do you protect them? He asked Tom one day. What do you gain from defending species that can't help you in return? Tom looked out the window at the playing children. Because someone has to. Because if we don't stand up for the innocent, who will? My daughter is out there playing with kids from 6 different worlds. That's the galaxy I want her to grow up in. Back on Kelvar Prime, the crystal gardens were blooming again. Human and Kelvari children ran through the light-filled groves, their laughter echoing off the walls. Elder Nix sat with Captain Webb, watching the next generation grow up together. Captain, do you think this will last? She asked. This peace we've built? Webb watched a human girl teach a young Kelvari how to throw a ball, while a group of mixed-species children played tag around the crystal trees. Elder, I think we've started something that can't be stopped. The galaxy's bullies know now that there are consequences for their actions, and peaceful species know they're not alone anymore. He stood up and looked at the stars appearing in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, human ships patrolled alongside their new alien allies, protecting trade routes and peaceful worlds. The galaxy was changing, becoming safer for those who chose cooperation over conquest. The universe is a big place, Webb said. There will always be new threats, new monsters that think they can hurt innocent people, but they'll find out what the Bloodclaw learned. When Deathworlders hear someone calling for help, we don't just answer. We stay to make sure it never happens again. The stars shone down on Kelvar Prime, where 2 species had learned that strength and gentleness could work together to build something better than either could create alone. The age of unopposed predators was over. The age of protected innocence had begun, and in the vast darkness of space, human ships continued their eternal watch, ready to answer the next call for help. The message burst across the vast emptiness of space, traveling at light speed through the communication relays of the Galactic Confederation. It was weak, broken, and filled with static, but its urgency was unmistakable. In the Grand Chamber of the Confederation Council, the holographic display flickered to life. The face of a Trell appeared, skin pale blue, eyes large and black, features twisted in fear. This is Colony 14 of the Trell Republic. We are under attack. The Vex Armada has breached our outer defenses. We have sustained heavy casualties. Our shields will fail within days. We request immediate assistance from any Confederation forces in range. Please, help us. The transmission cut to static, then looped again. Ambassador Lorne stood before the gathered representatives of over 200 peaceful species. His tall, slender form cast a long shadow across the chamber floor. The gray markings on his face, signs, of his advanced age and wisdom, seemed deeper today. Esteemed members of the Confederation, Lorne began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. The Trell have been our allies for 3 centuries. They have never asked for military aid until now. The chamber filled with concerned murmurs. The Trell were known throughout the galaxy as scientists and artists, not warriors. Their world was a place of learning and beauty. The Vex Armada has no interest in peace, continued Lorne. They consume resources and move on. If they take the Trell homeworld, they will not stop there. Representative Mira of the Solian cluster rose from her seat. What forces can we send? The Trell are on the outer rim, at least 10 days' travel from our nearest military outpost. General Dax, commander of the Confederation Defense Force, stepped forward. The old warrior's face was grim as he activated the tactical display. Our nearest battle group consists of 12 vessels, he explained. The Vex fleet attacking the Trell numbers at least 50 ships, including 3 dreadnoughts. We would be outnumbered and outgunned. Silence fell over the chamber. The Confederation had maintained peace for so long that its military had shrunk to little more than a peacekeeping force. There must be something we can do, Lorne insisted, looking around the room. The Trell have days, not weeks. In the back of the chamber, an older representative stood up. Keeper Voss was ancient even by the standards of the long-lived Ardari. Few in the room had ever heard him speak. There is one option, he said, his voice barely audible. Though I hesitate to suggest it. All eyes turned to him. Protocol 7, Voss continued. The Emergency Contact Directive. General Dax's eyes widened. Keeper Voss, you cannot be serious. Protocol 7 has never been activated. What is Protocol 7? Asked Representative Mira, looking confused. Lorne's expression darkened. It is a contingency plan, created in the early days of the Confederation. If we ever faced an existential threat beyond our ability to counter, we would reach out to the quarantined species. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Ambassador Lorne raised his hands for quiet. The quarantined species reside on a world designated as Earth, he explained. They evolved on what our scientists classify as a death world, a planet with high gravity, extreme temperature variations, dangerous levels of radiation, and countless predators. Images appeared on the main display, a blue and green world with vast oceans and swirling white clouds. The inhabitants call themselves humans, Lorne continued. They developed in isolation, unaware of the greater galactic community. Our observation? Posts have monitored their progress for centuries. General Dax stepped forward again. These humans are dangerous. Their entire history is filled with conflict. They fight among themselves constantly. Their technology is primitive compared to ours, but their warships are surprisingly advanced. New images appeared. Massive gray vessels cutting through ocean waters, sleek aircraft, and orbital platforms. Despite their violent tendencies, they show remarkable potential, Lorne countered. They are adaptable, resourceful, and determined. Most importantly, they have something the Vex lack: unpredictability. Keeper Voss nodded slowly. The Deathworlders think differently than we do. Their harsh environment forced them to develop skills and strategies no peaceful species would consider. The Vex rely on predictable responses from their opponents. The humans would be anything but predictable. The council chamber grew quiet as the representatives considered this option. How would we even contact them? Asked Representative Mira. Our nearest embassy is light years from their world. We have a stealth observation post in their solar system, replied General Dax reluctantly. It could be repurposed for direct contact. Ambassador Lorne looked around the chamber. I understand your concerns. Making contact with a quarantined species is not a decision to take lightly, but the Trell are running out of time and we have no other options. What if these humans refuse to help? Another representative called out. Or worse, what if they decide to attack us instead? Our observers report that humans place great value on helping others in danger, Lorne answered. They call it rescue. It appears to be a fundamental aspect of their culture. The council debated for hours. Arguments rose and fell. The risk was enormous, not just from the Vex but from exposing the Confederation to an unpredictable species from a death world. Finally, Ambassador Lorne called for a vote. All those in favor of activating Protocol 7 and seeking assistance from Earth, please indicate now. Slowly, one by one, lights began to appear on the voting display. Some representatives hesitated, looking uncertain. Others pressed their voting buttons immediately. When the final count appeared, Lorne nodded solemnly. The motion passes. Protocol 7 is hereby activated. General Dax turned to his communications officer. Send word to Observation Post Delta. They are to make immediate contact with Earth authorities. Priority message: the Galactic Confederation formally requests military assistance against the Vex Armada. As the council dispersed, Ambassador Lorne stood alone, staring at the image of Earth rotating slowly on the main display. I hope we have made the right decision, he whispered to himself. For all our sakes. In the darkness of space, a small, hidden station orbiting one of Jupiter's moons received its new orders. Inside, the observation team looked at each other in shock. After decades of silent watching, they were about to change the course of human history forever. The signal was prepared, aimed toward Earth, and transmitted. Protocol 7 was now active. The Deathworlders were about to join the galactic stage. Captain Jack Marcus stood on the bridge of the EDF Valiant, Earth's most advanced patrol vessel. Through the viewport, Jupiter's massive form dominated the view, its swirling storms creating patterns of orange and white. The Valiant was conducting its regular patrol of the outer solar system, a routine mission that had revealed nothing unusual for months. Until now. Captain, we're picking up an unusual signal, reported Lieutenant Reed from the communication station. Her fingers moved quickly across the console. It's not one of ours, Marcus frowned. Not Russian? Chinese? European? No, sir. It doesn't match any known Earth transmission patterns. And it's coming from. She paused, double-checking her readings. Sir, it's coming from Ganymede. That's impossible, Marcus said, moving to her station. We don't have any bases on Ganymede. The bridge fell silent as the crew processed this information. Humanity had established outposts on the Moon and Mars, with small research stations on a few other moons. But Ganymede wasn't one of them. Put it through, Marcus ordered. The main screen flickered and then displayed something that made every crew member freeze. The being on the screen wasn't human. Its face was elongated with large, lidless eyes and gray-green skin that seemed to shimmer slightly. Greetings, people of Earth, the being said in perfect English. I am Pell, envoy of the Galactic Confederation. We request immediate dialogue with your leaders regarding a matter of great urgency. For several seconds, no one on the bridge spoke. Then Captain Marcus cleared his throat. This is Captain Jack Marcus of the Earth Defense Fleet vessel Valiant. How are you transmitting from Ganymede? The alien, Pell, blinked slowly. The Confederation has maintained an observation post on your moon Ganymede for the past 142 Earth years. We have studied your languages and cultures. Until now, our directive was non-interference. Marcus struggled to maintain his composure. And what's changed? We face an enemy we cannot defeat alone. The Confederation has authorized me to request Earth's military assistance under Protocol 7. Within hours, the Valiant had changed course to Ganymede, and Earth's leaders had been notified. The news of alien contact was kept from the public while world leaders tried to make sense of the situation. In a secure facility beneath the Pentagon, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the President, and representatives from other major nations gathered. Captain Marcus attended via secure video link from the Valiant, which was now approaching the hidden alien base on Ganymede. Let me get this straight, said President Walker, leaning forward in her chair. These aliens have been watching us for over a century, and now they want our help fighting a war? On the screen, Captain Marcus nodded. Yes, Madam President. The envoy Pell has provided detailed information about both the Confederation and the threat they face. Admiral Hayes, the highest-ranking officer in the Earth Defense Fleet, stood up and activated a holographic display in the center of the table. It showed star maps and alien vessel designs. According to the information provided, this galactic confederation spans over 200 star systems. They're a peaceful collective of species that have achieved interstellar travel. They've been aware of Earth for centuries but classified us as a death world species. A what? Asked the Chinese premier. Death world, repeated Hayes. It's their term for planets with conditions they consider extremely hostile. High gravity, high radiation, extreme temperature variations, diverse pathogens, and abundant predators. Earth checks all those boxes. To them, we evolved in hell. The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. So they're afraid of us, said the Russian president slowly. Yes and no, replied Hayes. They recognize that species from death worlds develop certain advantages. Physical strength, endurance, aggression, and problem-solving skills that more peaceful species lack. That's why they're asking for our help now. President Walker frowned. And you believe this request is genuine? Captain Marcus spoke up from the screen. Madam President, I've just completed a tour of their observation post. Their technology is far beyond ours in many areas. If they wanted to harm Earth, they could have done so long ago. The feed switched to show footage from the Ganymede base. The alien technology was like nothing they had ever seen, sleek, organic-looking devices that seemed to function without visible controls. The threat they face is called the Vex Armada, continued Admiral Hayes, a predatory group that conquers worlds for resources. They're currently attacking a peaceful species called the Trell, and the Confederation doesn't have the military strength to stop them. So why us? Asked the British Prime Minister. If they have all this advanced technology, why do they need our ships? Marcus answered. According to Pell, it's not just about our ships, it's about how we think. The Confederation species have evolved in peaceful environments. They don't understand warfare the way humans do. Admiral Hayes nodded. Our history is filled with conflict. As terrible as that is, it's given us a unique perspective on strategy and tactics. The Vex are predictable. They follow the same patterns in every invasion. The Confederation believes our unpredictability could be the key to defeating them. President Walker stood up and paced the room. So they've been watching us fight each other for centuries, and now they want us to fight for them. Not just for them, Marcus said. If what Pell says is true, the Vex won't stop with the Trell. Eventually, they'll find Earth. The room fell quiet again. Admiral Hayes, the president finally said, what forces could we realistically commit to this operation? Hayes brought up new images on the display. The EDF Joint Command can deploy the Third Fleet. That's 4 carrier groups led by the flagship Defender, 48 ships total, with air wings and marine contingents. That's a significant portion of our space-capable vessels, noted the French president. Yes, agreed Hayes. But the Confederation is offering to temporarily upgrade our ships with their technology, FTL drives, enhanced shields, and communication systems compatible with their networks. Captain Marcus added, Pell assures me the modifications can be completed within 3 days at their Ganymede facility. President Walker looked around the room at the assembled leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, we're facing the most important decision in human history. Do we join this fight? After hours of debate, the vote was unanimous. Earth would respond to the call. As Captain Marcus returned to his ship, he looked at Jupiter hanging in space. For his entire life, he had looked up at the stars and wondered if humanity was alone. Now he knew the answer, and it came with a heavy responsibility. Set course for Earth, he told his navigator. We need to prepare the fleet. As the Valiant turned away from Ganymede, Pell stood on the observation deck of the alien base, watching the human ship depart. They have agreed, Pell transmitted to the Confederation Council. The Death Worlders are coming. The vast emptiness of space stretched before the Earth fleet as they traveled through the darkness between stars. 48 ships moved in perfect formation, their hulls now enhanced with alien technology that allowed them to cross distances once thought impossible. At the center of the formation, the massive flagship Defender led the way. On its bridge, Admiral Hayes stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the unfamiliar stars streak past on the main view screen. Status report, he ordered. Captain Marcus, now serving as his second-in-command for the mission, checked the displays. All ships maintaining formation, Admiral. The Confederation FTL drives are performing beyond expectations. At our current speed, we'll reach trail space in 2 more days. Beside them stood Pell, the alien envoy who had become their guide to the galaxy. The tall, slender being observed the human crew with fascination. Your adaptation to our technology has been remarkable, Pell noted. Most species require months of training to operate Confederation systems. Humans are good at figuring out new tools, Marcus replied with a slight smile, especially when lives depend on it. Throughout the fleet, crews were indeed adapting, quickly. In the engineering section of the Defender, Chief Engineer Moore worked alongside her team to understand the alien systems that now powered their ships. It's like nothing I've ever seen, she told her assistant as they examined the glowing core of the FTL drive. It doesn't just bend space. It slides through it somehow. The math behind this would rewrite physics as we know it. Can we replicate it? Her assistant asked. Moore shook her head. Not yet, but I'm taking detailed notes. When we get home, Earth's scientists will have years of new research to explore. In another section of the flagship, Lieutenant Rivera led the diplomatic team. They spent hours each day learning about the Galactic Confederation, its member species, and their cultures. The knowledge was overwhelming. Hundreds of different alien civilizations, each with their own history and customs. The Confederation Council has existed for over 3,000 years, explained one of Pell's assistants, a small being with 4 arms and iridescent skin. Most member species evolved on worlds with stable environments and few predators. This led to cultures that value cooperation over competition, which explains why they struggle against an aggressive enemy like the Vex, Rivera noted. Precisely, the assistant agreed. The concept of warfare as humans understand it is foreign to most Confederation species. Meanwhile, in the Combat Training Center, Commander Wilson supervised as Marines and naval combat teams prepared for possible boarding actions. The artificial gravity had been adjusted to match what they expected on Vex vessels, slightly lighter than Earth normal. Remember, we have physical advantages they won't expect, Wilson told the assembled fighters. The Vex evolved on a world with about 0.8 Earth gravity. That means we're stronger, pound for pound. Use that to your advantage. A young Marine raised her hand. Sir, what about their weapons? Based on the intel from the Confederation, the Vex rely heavily on energy weapons similar to our lasers but more advanced. They don't expect physical combat. It's not their way of fighting. They believe technological superiority determines the outcome of battles. They've never met humans before, someone commented, drawing laughter from the group. As the journey continued, the Earth fleet passed through regions of space never before seen by human eyes. They witnessed the birth of stars in vast nebulae, saw planets with rings that made Saturn look modest, and passed close enough to a neutron star to observe its incredible density. On the 4th day of their journey, they encountered their first alien vessels outside the Confederation. Admiral, 3 ships approaching from Sector 7, reported the tactical officer. Configuration unknown, not Confederation and not Vex according to our database. Raise shields, ordered Hayes, but hold weapons. Let's not start a fight if we don't have to. Pell moved quickly to the communication station. These are Baradan traders. They pose no threat, but they will be surprised to see your ships. Allow me to make contact. The alien spoke rapidly in a language the universal translators couldn't process. After a brief exchange, Pell turned back to Hayes. They are shocked to see a Death World species traveling freely. The Confederation has informed only its closest allies about Protocol 7. I've assured them we are on a sanctioned mission. The trading vessels gave the Earth fleet a wide berth as they passed. Through telescopes, the human crews could see alien faces pressed against viewports, staring at them with what looked like fear. They're afraid of us, Marcus said quietly. Yes, Pell admitted. Stories of Earth and its inhabitants have spread throughout the galaxy. Many believe you are nothing but violent savages. And what do you believe? Asked Hayes. Pell's expression was unreadable. I believe you are exactly what we need right now. As they neared Trell space, the mood throughout the fleet grew more serious. Combat drills increased, weapons were checked and rechecked, and final strategy sessions ran late into the night. In the officers' mess hall, Captain Marcus shared a meal with Lieutenant Rivera and Commander Wilson. "What do you think we'll find when we get there?" Rivera asked. Wilson shrugged. "If we're lucky, the Vex will have moved on, and this will be a simple rescue mission." "And if we're not lucky?" Marcus pressed. "Then we'll do what humans have always done," Wilson replied. "Adapt and overcome." On the final day of their journey, Pell received a transmission from the Confederation. The alien's face fell as they listened. "What is it?" Hayes asked when Pell approached the command station. "The situation has deteriorated," Pell said grimly. "The Vex have broken through the last Trell defensive line. They now control half the system. The remaining Trell forces are gathered around their homeworld for a final stand." Hayes looked at the tactical display, which now showed the Trell system. Red markers indicated Vex positions, while blue showed the remaining Trell defenses. The disparity was stark. "How long do they have?" Marcus asked. "Without intervention, the Trell homeworld will fall within 3 days," Pell answered. "Billions will die." Hayes straightened his uniform and turned to the communications officer. "Send to all ships, prepare for combat operations. We exit FTL in 1 hour." Throughout the fleet, men and women prepared for battle. They cleaned weapons, checked equipment, and in quiet moments, thought of home. A distant blue planet they had left behind to save another they had never seen. On the bridge of the Defender, Admiral Hayes watched the FTL countdown timer tick down. "Humanity's first interstellar battle," he said quietly to Marcus. "Not what I expected when I joined the service." "Do you think we can win?" Marcus asked. Hayes looked at the determination on the faces of his bridge crew. "The Vex have never faced humans before. I almost feel sorry for them." The timer reached 0. The stars reappeared as normal space surrounded them. Ahead lay the Trell system and the waiting Vex armada. The Earth fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Trell system. 48 ships of various sizes appeared simultaneously, their enhanced hulls gleaming in the light of an unfamiliar sun. "All ships accounted for," reported Lieutenant Reed from her station on the Defender's bridge. "Combat systems online, shields at maximum." Admiral Hayes studied the tactical display. The situation was worse than they had anticipated. Vex ships surrounded the inner planets, with their largest vessels positioned in a blockade formation around the Trell homeworld. Dozens of smaller craft darted between larger ships, ferrying troops and supplies to the surface. "They've already begun landing ground forces," Hayes observed grimly. Pell stood nearby, eyes fixed on the images of his allies' homeworld. "The Trell are not warriors. They will not survive a ground invasion." Captain Marcus joined them at the display. "Then we need to stop those landing craft and clear a path for evacuation ships," Hayes nodded. "Agreed." He turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel to the Vex fleet." "Channel open, sir. This is Admiral William Hayes of the Earth Defense Fleet. We represent the forces of Earth, acting in alliance with the Galactic Confederation. The Trell system is under our protection. Withdraw your forces immediately." For several long moments there was no response. Then the main screen flickered, and a new figure appeared. The Vex commander was not what they expected. Rather than a fearsome warrior, the alien appeared almost delicate, with pale skin stretched over a narrow face and small, dark eyes. When it spoke, the universal translator converted its clicks and whistles into English. "Earth, we know of your world, the quarantined death world." The Vex commander's eyes narrowed. "The Confederation grows desperate to send for such savage allies. It changes nothing. The Trell resources belong to the Vex Armada now. Interfere, and you will be destroyed." The transmission ended abruptly. "Not much for negotiation, are they?" Marcus remarked. Hayes turned to his tactical officer. "What are we facing?" 63 Vex vessels total, sir. 3 dreadnoughts, 20 cruisers, and 40 smaller craft. Their technology appears to be superior to Confederation standards, but the modifications to our ships should even the odds somewhat. Hayes considered this information, then made his decision. Battle Plan Delta. Split the fleet. 3 battle groups. Captain Marcus, you'll lead Group 1 against their support ships. Commander Wilson will take Group 2 and target their landing craft. I'll lead Group 3 against their main fleet to draw their fire. Throughout the Earth fleet, crews raced to battle stations. Fighter pilots ran to their craft. Marines prepared for possible boarding actions, and weapons officers activated targeting systems. On the bridge of the frigate Intrepid, Commander Wilson addressed his battle group. Our priority is protecting the Trell civilians. Take out those landing craft, but be precise, we don't want to hit the planet. As the Earth ships moved into formation, the Vex fleet responded. Their vessels turned with mechanical precision, arranging themselves into a defensive pattern that had likely worked countless times against Confederation forces. They're forming a standard phalanx, observed Pell. It is the same tactic they have used in 17 previous engagements. Hayes smiled thinly. Then they're about to learn some new lessons. He opened the fleet-wide channel. All ships, execute Battle Plan Delta. Engage at will. The Earth fleet suddenly split into 3 distinct groups, each moving in directions the Vex clearly hadn't anticipated. Instead of approaching in a unified formation as Confederation ships would have done, the humans attacked from multiple vectors simultaneously. Captain Marcus led his group in a sweeping arc beneath the main Vex fleet, targeting their support vessels. All ships target their engines first, weapons second, let's strand them. The Earth vessels opened fire. Enhanced by Confederation technology, their weapons struck with devastating effect. 3 Vex support ships lost power immediately, drifting helplessly as their crews scrambled to restore systems. Meanwhile, Commander Wilson's group raced toward the planet, intercepting landing craft. The smaller, more agile Earth ships darted between the lumbering Vex transports, firing precision shots that disabled rather than destroyed. We don't want to kill their ground forces if we can help it, Wilson reminded his weapons officer. Disabled ships can be boarded and captured. The Vex responded with coordinated fire, but they struggled to hit the rapidly moving Earth vessels. Their targeting systems, designed to track the predictable movements of Confederation ships, couldn't keep up with the erratic, almost random flight patterns the human pilots employed. On the Defender, Admiral Hayes watched as the main Vex fleet turned to engage his battle group. They're taking the bait. All ships, evasive pattern Omega. Make them work for every shot. The largest Earth vessels, including the Defender, began a complex dance of approach and retreat. They would charge forward, fire a concentrated volley, then veer off in unexpected directions before the Vex could return fire effectively. In the engineering section of the Defender, Chief Engineer Moore worked frantically to maintain the ship's enhanced systems. The shields are holding, but the power fluctuations are getting worse. These Confederation modifications weren't designed for this kind of combat stress. Reroute power from non-essential systems, Hayes ordered over the comm. We need those shields. As the battle intensified, the Vex commander realized his standard tactics weren't working. The 3 Vex dreadnoughts began charging their main weapons, massive energy cannons capable of destroying even the largest Earth ships with a single hit. Energy spike detected, called out the Defender's tactical officer. The dreadnoughts are preparing to fire. Hayes gripped the command rail. All ships in Group 3, scatter now. The Earth vessels broke formation just as 3 devastating energy beams cut through the space they had occupied seconds before. One beam grazed the destroyer Phoenix, overwhelming its shields and scorching a deep gouge along its hull. Phoenix is hit but still operational, reported Lieutenant Reed. Their weapons are offline, but engines are functioning. Hayes studied the tactical display, noting how the dreadnoughts were positioned. There's a pattern to their firing sequence. They need to recharge between shots. He opened a channel to Captain Marcus. Jack, can you get a team close to the lead dreadnought? Already on it, Marcus replied. The camera showed his battle group had successfully disrupted the Vex support ships and was now moving toward the largest enemy vessel. We've identified what looks like external power relays. If we can disable those, we might interrupt their main weapons. On the bridge of the Intrepid, Commander Wilson received an urgent transmission from one of his fighters. "Sir, we've spotted something unusual on the planet's surface. The Vex aren't just landing troops, they're setting up some kind of device near the main Trell city." Wilson focused his sensors on the location. A massive structure was taking shape, with energy readings unlike anything they had seen before. "Get me Admiral Hayes," he ordered. When Hayes appeared on screen, Wilson shared the sensor data. "Sir, I think they're building a planet cracker, a device to break open the crust and access the minerals underneath. If they activate it, the entire Trell civilization would be destroyed." Pell finished, horror evident in his voice. Hayes made a quick decision. "Wilson, take your group and destroy that device. Marcus, continue your assault on the Dreadnought. We'll keep the main fleet occupied." As the battle entered its second hour, the tide began to turn. The Earth fleet, though outnumbered, fought with an unpredictability that the Vex couldn't counter. Human pilots made decisions that seemed illogical, taking risks no Confederation pilot would consider. On the main Vex Dreadnought, alarms blared as Captain Marcus led a daring attack run directly at its command tower. "All ships, target these coordinates. Fire everything you've got." The concentrated barrage overwhelmed the Dreadnought's shields, exposing vulnerable systems beneath. Marcus's ship, the Valiant, closed to point-blank range, a move so reckless that the Vex gunners failed to adjust in time. On the surface, Commander Wilson's forces engaged Vex ground troops around the massive device. Marine dropships landed, under heavy fire, deploying troops who fought their way toward the alien machine. The battle for the Trell system had fully begun, and in the command centers of the Vex fleet, for the first time in their long history of conquest, there was something unfamiliar growing among their leaders: doubt. The battle for the Trell system entered its final phase as the Earth fleet pressed their advantage. Smoke filled the corridors of the Defender as Admiral Hayes studied the tactical display. Despite taking heavy damage, the human ships had managed to disrupt the Vex battle formation. "Status report," Hayes demanded, wiping blood from a cut on his forehead. "Captain Marcus has disabled the main weapons on the lead Dreadnought," Lieutenant Reed reported. "Commander Wilson's ground forces have reached the planet cracker device but are facing heavy resistance." Pell stood nearby, amazement clear in his large eyes. "In all recorded history, no one has ever pushed the Vex back once they began a planetary invasion." Hayes nodded grimly. "We're not done yet." He opened a channel to Marcus. "Jack, what's your situation?" On the screen, Captain Marcus appeared, his uniform torn and bridge filled with emergency lighting. "We've knocked out their main cannon, but they're adapting. The other two Dreadnoughts have changed formation to protect the damaged one. Can you board the lead ship?" Marcus looked surprised. "Board it? That wasn't in the battle plan." "It is now," Hayes replied. "If we can capture their command center, we might be able to end this without destroying their entire fleet." After a moment of consideration, Marcus nodded. "We'll need a distraction." "You'll get one," Hayes promised. He turned to his tactical officer. "Prepare all remaining missiles. Target the other Dreadnought's sensor arrays, not their critical systems. I want to blind them, not destroy them." As the Defender and its remaining escorts moved into position, Captain Marcus assembled a boarding team on the Valiant. 20 Marines in combat suits checked their weapons as the ship maneuvered close to the damaged Vex Dreadnought. "Remember," Marcus told them, "we want to reach the command center intact. Use non-lethal force when possible. We need prisoners who can order a retreat." On the planet's surface, Commander Wilson led his team through the corridors of the massive Vex installation. They had fought their way to the central chamber where the planet cracker device hummed with building energy. "Engineering team front and center," Wilson ordered. "The rest of you, defensive positions." Engineer Taylor, a young woman who had graduated, top of her class at the academy, examined the alien technology. "It's unlike anything I've seen before, but the principles seem similar to our fusion reactors. They're building toward some kind of controlled detonation." "Can you shut it down?" Wilson asked. Taylor studied the controls. "Not directly. They've locked out the command functions, but there's a pattern to the energy flow. Her fingers traced the pulsing lights that ran across the device's surface. It's a sequence. I think I can interrupt it if we target these junction points simultaneously. Wilson divided his team. Set charges on the points Taylor indicates. We'll blow them all at once. In space, the Defender launched its missile barrage. Dozens of enhanced warheads streaked toward the Vex dreadnoughts, detonating against their sensor arrays in coordinated flashes. The massive ships began firing blindly, their weapons lashing out but hitting nothing. Now, Marcus, Hayes ordered. The Valiant shot forward, using the confusion to close distance with the lead dreadnought. As they approached, special breaching pods launched from the ship's hull, each carrying 5 Marines. The pods slammed into the Vex vessel, cutting through the hull with specialized tools. Captain Marcus led the first team through the breach. The interior of the Vex ship was strange. Corridors curved in unexpected ways, and the lighting pulsed with an alien rhythm. The human boarding teams moved quickly, encountering scattered resistance from Vex crews who seemed unprepared for physical combat. They relied too much on their technology, Marcus observed as his team subdued another group of Vex engineers. They don't know how to fight hand-to-hand. Meanwhile, Engineer Taylor and her team placed the final explosive charges on the Planet Cracker device. Charges set. Everyone clear the area. Wilson's forces retreated to a safe distance as Taylor activated the detonator. The explosions were precisely targeted, striking the vulnerable junction points she had identified. Instead of a catastrophic detonation, the device's energy flow reversed, causing systems to shut down in sequence. "It's working," Taylor exclaimed. "The reaction is collapsing." On the Vex dreadnought, Captain Marcus and his team fought their way to the command center. The doors were sealed, but the Marines made short work of them with breaching charges. As smoke cleared, they rushed in with weapons raised. The Vex commander stood surrounded by officers, their delicate forms appearing almost fragile compared to the armored humans. For a moment, no one moved. "Your fleet is crippled," Marcus stated, clearly, letting the translator convey his words. "Your ground forces are cut off. Your planet cracker has been disabled. Surrender now." The Vex commander's dark eyes studied Marcus. "You fight differently. Not like the Confederation." "We're not the Confederation," Marcus replied. "We're humans, and we're giving you one chance to end this without further bloodshed." After a long moment, the Vex commander made a gesture to its officers. "Send the signal. All forces, stand down." Throughout the system, Vex ships powered down weapons. On the planet's surface, their ground troops ceased fighting and began to retreat to their landing craft. Admiral Hayes watched in disbelief as the tactical display showed enemy units withdrawing. "They're actually surrendering," he said softly. Pell stepped forward. "This is unprecedented. The Vex have never retreated from an invasion." "First time for everything," Hayes replied. The next day, representatives from the Trell government met with the Earth commanders and the Vex leadership aboard the Defender. The Trell were tall, graceful beings with luminescent skin that shifted colors with their emotions. Their leader, High Speaker Null, bowed deeply to Hayes. "You have saved our world and our people," Null said, his skin glowing with gratitude. "The Trell will never forget what Earth has done for us." The Vex commander, now a prisoner of war, watched the proceedings with calculating eyes. "You could have destroyed us," it said to Hayes. "Why didn't you?" "That's not why we came," Hayes answered. "We came to stop an invasion, not commit genocide." In the days that followed, the Earth fleet helped the Trell begin rebuilding. Medical teams treated the injured, engineers repaired critical infrastructure, and diplomatic officers established formal relations between Earth and the Trell Republic. 2 weeks after the battle, a delegation from the Galactic Confederation arrived, led by Ambassador Lorne himself. The ancient diplomat looked upon the Earth ships with new understanding. "The Council has been in continuous session since we received word of your victory," Lorne told Hayes during their formal meeting. "What you have accomplished was thought impossible." "We just did what needed to be done," Hayes replied simply. Lorne's expression became solemn. The Confederation has existed for thousands of years on principles of peace and cooperation. We feared species from death worlds because we believed your warlike natures made you dangerous to galactic stability. He gestured toward the view screen, which showed human medical teams helping injured Trell civilians. We failed to understand that the same evolutionary pressures that made you fierce in battle also made you fierce in protection of others. Later that evening, a formal ceremony was held in the Great Hall of the Trell capital city. Representatives from 20 Confederation worlds attended, along with the officers and crew of the Earth Fleet. Ambassador Lorne stood before the gathered crowd, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. "Today marks a new chapter in the history of our galaxy," he announced. "The quarantine of Earth is hereby lifted. Humanity is formally invited to join the Galactic Confederation, not as subjects or clients, but as full and equal members." Admiral Hayes stepped forward to accept the formal invitation, a data crystal containing the Confederation Charter. The crowd erupted in applause, a universal expression of approval that transcended species differences. As the celebration continued, Captain Marcus found himself standing next to Pell on a balcony overlooking the Trell capital. The city's towers gleamed in the light of twin moons already being rebuilt after the brief Vex occupation. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. Pell gazed at the stars visible above them. "Your people will venture out among those stars, and the galaxy will never be the same." "Is that a good thing?" Marcus wondered. "I believe it is," Pell replied. "The Confederation needed you, not just your strength in battle, but your perspective, your ability to see problems differently." In the months that followed, Earth established its first extraterrestrial embassy on the Confederation capital world. Trade agreements were signed, cultural exchanges began, and human scientists eagerly collaborated with alien counterparts. And on distant worlds throughout the galaxy, when the story was told of how the Vex Armada was finally defeated, it always began the same way. It started with an SOS signal, answered by the most unlikely of saviors, the Death Worlders of Earth.